All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. It is 7 o'clock. We want to be mindful of everybody's time. So thanks for all who are on our webinar this evening. We appreciate your time. Also, before we get started, just a quick thank you to everyone for your work over a very, very busy fall season. We're in the home stretch with bowling, and obviously winter sports are right around the corner, but between Fall Sports Festival, bowling practices, soccer tournament down in Salisbury, we have been all over the state. We've engaged a lot of athletes. We've also been doing a lot of fundraisers in there as well. So I just want to say thank you for your work during a very busy season. Tonight, as usual, we'll be going through our webinar. We have a few presenters tonight. We'll hit the agenda in a little bit, but also on the webinar from our staff, in addition to me, is George Hergenhan, our CFO, Sue Jacobs, our VP for Donor Relations, Mike Zarnowski, our VP Sports, Mackenzie Irvin, our Director for the Young Athletes Program, Ron Freeman, our Director of the Baltimore region, and Ryan Kelchner, who's our Western region coordinator. Ron will be doing the moderating tonight, so if you have a question, certainly you can either raise your hand, use not your actual hand, your webinar hand, and we will unmute you so you can ask the question, or if you would like, you can type it in the question box below. One thing I have added, I've never used this before, so not completely sure how it works, but there are two handouts that go along with the webinar that you'll see. One is the Special Olympics North America Local Program Resource Guide. That's a PDF, and we're going to be talking about that both at the meeting and later on in the webinar. And then a copy of the approved strategic plan. Again, something that we'll talk about later. I just wanted to point those out that we do have handouts in this section. So quickly taking a look at the agenda for what we have going on. George is going to give us a financial update. He'll cover topics including state and local budgets, 2019 Winter Games expenses as an FYI to our area leaders, and a USA Games budget review. Then Sue Jacobs is going to follow up on the email that she sent out, I believe yesterday, about some development updates as it relates to online donations and donor information. Mike and team have a lot of topics under our sports department, so lots to talk about there, and also queuing up for the meeting that we have. And then I'll wrap up with a quick Health Expo review, as well as some strategic plan updates, and I'll look ahead to Saturday's meeting and agenda. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to George. George, I'm going to unmute you so you can talk through your financial updates. Okay, George, you're ready to go.
Okay. I'm not seeing my reports on the screen.
Yeah, so we'll start with the state report.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Good evening, everybody. Gonna go over real quick tonight the financial summary for both the state budget and the area budgets. The reports that you'll see are reports that we share with the board of directors and with the finance committee, and they're a summary as of September 30th. Jeff, I'm sorry, but it just keeps disappearing. Oh, there we go. Okay. It just keeps disappearing on my screen. So what I'm looking at here is the first one we're looking at is the state budget as of September 30th. And the actuals, so the summary at the top is the actuals as of September. These are in thousands of dollars, so that's the first revenue number is actually $4,559,000 for actual revenue. On the left, it's September year to date, and on the right, it's our projection for what we'll have for the year. So things are going very well. this year. We have a income of $349,000 through September 30th on a budget of 74. The primary reason for that was a very nice estate gift that we received. We received it so quickly that it really wasn't budgeted because we only learned about it at the end of last year, and then it was a quick settlement. So that's the primary reason that we're ahead, but there's other reasons as well. So our forecast for the year is that we will have about a $348,000 surplus on a budget of about 252. What that's going to allow us to do is to continue our goal of building our operating reserve. So we are continuing to put money away to build a reserve, and hopefully we'll one day get to about 6 months worth of operating expenses in our reserve. Ron, if you'll move that down just, or Jeff, if you'll move that down just a little bit, the detail at the bottom explains the projection for the year. This is not September 30th. This is the projection for the year, and gives some of the reasons that the forecast is off from the budget, where it disagrees with the budget. And the individual giving, as I mentioned, with the state gifts, we're about $220,000 ahead. Some other categories are behind, but so that category is ahead by 76,000. And you can see in the other categories in our grants and foundations are doing well. We just have one foundation gift that we have recently learned we might not get. We just learned about that recently, so that's why it was included in the budget. Plunge 18, the revenue was down just a little bit less than budget. In the other events, we were doing pretty well with law enforcement, torture, and clothing sales. The reference to the gala, we are going to start a kind of a black tie gala fundraiser. It was hoped that we could start it this year. That did not come together, but it will be started next year just before summer games. So that's why that appears to be down so much. It was just because it was canceled. And then in the other area, USA Games, the state budget is ahead because we delayed reimbursing the state for the expenses that were put out in last year in 2017. We carried that over into 2018. And of course, games fees are down because we didn't charge any winter games fees. In our expenses, we do have some savings, as we normally do, in salaries and benefits. That's from turnover and delays in hiring. That's typical for us every year. Athletic events are down. Winter games are down because we only had we had some expenses, but we did not incur all the expenses. Athlete recruitment was something that Steve Whiting was working on, and unfortunately, he made a decision to retire and move out of state. So we did not spend any money there. And the other things I think are pretty self-explanatory. Just normal variances between budget and actual. So again, hoping to end the year with about a $350,000 surplus. Are there any questions about the state summary? No.
So if you have any questions, please write them in or click to raise your hand on. So seeing none currently.
Okay. No.
We'll go ahead and take a look at the local programs.
Yeah, so we have a similar summary for the local programs. So if you could display that.
Sorry.
Okay. So this is all local programs together. So what we have up the top is, again, a summary of where we are as of September and a forecast for the year. It's kind of unique this year because we had USA games, but so you'll see that recurring theme down below when we explain differences. So the differences, if you'll scroll down just a little bit, Jeff, what we do on the bottom here is we summarize each area's bottom line. So what we're comparing here is your actual revenue less expenses to your budgeted revenue less expenses. And we just divide them into who's ahead of budget and who's behind budget. This is obviously a lot of information to get on one report. It's just a real quick summary of the reasons that we see a difference between the bottom lines. And you'll see the recurring themes here. So of course, everyone who participates in Winter Games saved on Winter Games fees because they weren't charged. The USA games, it has taken us a little bit longer to settle those, so there's no actual yet. We actually had some transactions trickling in October for the USA games. So apologize for the delay, but we do expect to get this settled very, very soon. If you have any questions about your particular county, again, this is just a real quick summary of the bottom line. So if you have any questions about your particular county and what's presented here, I'd appreciate it if you just email them to me and to Darlene, and we will get back to you with the detail. It's a little difficult to summarize 18 budgets into one report, but this is one that we think works about as best as it can under the circumstances. If there's any particular questions right now, I'll be happy to answer them. But like I said, if you want any detail, please just email us and we'll get back to you with a detailed answer to your question. Do we have any questions or anybody?
No questions are popping up, so we can go ahead and talk about Winter Games and USA Games, George.
Yes, and I don't have a slide for either of these. I just wanted to mention real quick a couple of updates, and we will get back to you on both with much more detail in the immediate future. We're going to have to look at, so the reason that Winter Games expenses is one of the topics tonight is that we did incur, even though games were canceled, we did incur some expenses, quite a bit of expenses. We had about $20,000 worth of expenses for the Winter Games. If you'll recall, they were canceled on a Thursday. We waited to the last minute, trying everything we could to make the games happen. But Whitetail finally made a decision that they just didn't have the snow and we had to cancel them. So unfortunately, things like rented vehicles and some deposit for the rented tents and things of that nature are just unavoidable. So going forward, we're going to have to look at some kind of fee to be charged back in this situation. We'll try to be as fair as possible. We'll try and prorate it. So for example, what I mean by prorating is that the fees were projected to cover about half of the Winter Games expenses. So we would only charge back something that would come up to half of the unavoidable expenses. So I will follow up with more details and a detailed explanation to everyone shortly, and we'll get your feedback on it and try and come up with something that works for everybody going forward. And so are there any questions about that right now, or do you just want to wait until I get back to you with the detail, and we'll certainly include an opportunity for feedback?
Yeah, we don't have any questions right now, George. So why don't you talk about USA Games, and then I think this is a good time, as George is talking about USA Games. If you do have questions that you want to type out, please go ahead and do that.
Okay. So as I mentioned, a little bit later than the last time on settling out USA Games, we did have, like I said, several transactions taking place, some revenue coming in and some expenses in the month of October. We did get, so I had sent out a preliminary report to everyone showing what your revenue and expense was, and what the if you had a surplus, how that would be split, and if you had a deficit, what that was. We did get one question back about that, and we're looking into it right now. It appears that some revenue may have been misclassified. Instead of being given to an area, it may have been recorded as revenue raised by the category we called state. The category we called state included management team members, it included coaches, and some key volunteers. And we haven't completely checked this out yet. We hope to have an answer tomorrow. But it appears, like I said, that some revenue was put into that category that should have gone to an area. If that is the case, if it turns out that that's true, we will send out amended reports to everyone, and just so you can see, it's not a lot out of the 200 and some $1,000 that was raised. It's only a couple $1,000. But that's why we do it. That's why we send out preliminary reports. And in this case, we, like I say, have what we think is a potential error that'll need to be corrected. Either way, we definitely think that we will have that done in the month of November. So you will see that in your November financial reports. And that is about all I have for the evening, Jeff.
Great, thank you, George. So I don't see any typed questions or hands raised. So what we'll go ahead and do, if people think of finance questions, go ahead, jot them down. You can type them in the question box, and I'll give them to George later, and we can circle back and answer those for the group. So thank you, George. We're going to move on from finance, and I believe Sue is next. So George, I'm going to mute you, and Sue, you're going to be unmuted for a second. Hey, Sue, you are unmuted and ready to go.
Great. Thanks, Jeff. Hi, everyone. I hope you're doing well tonight. I appreciate this opportunity to just go over a couple updates and changes to some donation information moving forward. I wanted to preview a couple things tonight, and definitely we can talk about this in greater detail on Saturday. The first change, as Jeff mentioned, I sent out an email. I believe it was on Monday. It may have been Tuesday, but it's a change to our online button, our online donation button on our website. This change came about as a result of joining what's called the IDMP. I hate to throw acronyms at you, but just to give you a brief overview of what the IDMP is, we currently are in a direct mail program with Special Olympics International. It's called the CDMP, Centralized Direct Mail Program. We've been in that program since 1996, and now we are moving into what's called their Integrated Direct Marketing Program, or IDMP. As a result, instead of doing just direct mail, we'll now be doing email marketing, telemarketing for consumers, and the direct mail, all integrated into one program. The big change for us, though, on our end is that any of our online donations need to go through the SOI landing page now. So the donation link will no longer go through our system. It will go through SOIs, and they do not have the capacity to offer donors the option to designate a local program. So we are going to lose that option on our public-facing websites. And that will begin starting November 15th. And when I looked at the results from last year, we had about 30 donations come in for areas, and it resulted in just a little over $2,000 in revenue that came in through that avenue. So it wasn't a huge amount of revenue, but I did want to make you aware that that is going to be happening. We always have the ability, so in the future as we move forward, if an individual makes a donation from an area program and they wanted it to go to the area and you're aware of that, we can certainly track that and always request that that money come back to the state, and we'll make sure that your area gets credited with that donation. We also have a few solutions that we're going to provide to you on Saturday, and we can talk to you in more detail about that as well. I did list those here. One is we will have the ability to offer a private link to individuals. So if you have a relationship with an individual and you want them to make a donation to your area, you can send them a link that will send them to the current page as we know it, and they can choose your local area program. It's just by contract, we're not allowed to share that link publicly. So you wouldn't be able to have that link on an e-newsletter. You wouldn't be able to send out an email blast and say, hey, send your donation by clicking here. It would just have to be in a one, case-by-case, one-on-one type of situation. And two other solutions, again, that we'll talk about in more detail. One is the relationships we have with the Knights of Columbus. And then last but not least is the ability to have local teams in the polar bear plunge and what that will mean. So that's just a brief overview, again, of the changes that are coming about starting Thursday, November 15th, to the donation button on our website. Do you have any questions about that tonight?
So we currently don't have any questions typed, and no hands raised. So again, as Sue's going over the next piece, if you do have any questions, why don't you type those in or click the hand raise button, and we can answer those questions. But Sue, we'll move on to the next slide for you.
All right, and the next change that will be coming about, and this won't be happening probably until the end of Q1 in 2019, we want to roll out a new process where we're adding all area donation information into our Raiser's Edge database. We have several reasons we want to do this. First and foremost, it's going to allow us to reconcile our area giving with finance. We currently do this at the state level. When I say reconcile, I mean reconcile what we have in our database against the general ledger. And the auditors like to see this type of reconciliation taking place. And since our area budget now is around $1 million, we know that the auditors are going to be requesting this sooner than later. So we want to get on board with getting this practice in place for 2019. Second, I know that there's concerns out there that, if we're putting these area donors into our database, does that mean that we at the state level will be soliciting them for donations? And my answer to you is no. When we enter this information into our database, they are given what's called a constituency code of area donor. And by giving them this code, we can suppress them from any solicitations that are going out. We don't send this information to SOIs. They are not going to be included on a direct mail program or on their email campaigns, and they will not receive any solicitations by us for several reasons. One, because we can't do that type of solicitation per our contract, but second, we want to honor the donor intent as well. So we're very careful about that. Another reason we want to do this is it's going to help us identify relationships that already exist out there with a local area program. So, for instance, and I use this because I think of this with regard to Howard County, but if we wanted to go and approach CarMax for a donation, if we didn't have that information in our database, we wouldn't know that relationship exists, and we wouldn't find out until we actually had the conversation with the sponsor. And we obviously don't want to do business like that. So we want to be respectful of the relationships that exist and not be stepping on any toes there. It will also allow us, though, to help us assist you, the local area programs, with identifying and increasing support of some donors that you already have. So, and it's not something we would do without talking to you first, but if we run some reports and we see, oh, this donor has been giving $1,000 a year over the past 5 years, maybe we should consider talking to them and seeing if they would want to increase their donation to your program. So it's going to give us the ability to analyze data in a way that we've never been able to do before. So we're hoping that's going to help enhance and support the local area programs as well. The administrative part of this is still being worked out. I am working with Darlene on that, on the best way to get this information over to us. I think there is a couple ways we can accomplish that, but again, we're working out that process. And I welcome your feedback on that as well, and concerns or any feedback you would have. So if you have nothing tonight, that's fine. But if you can think about that and bring those questions with you on Saturday, that would be great.
Actually, Sue, there is a question. Okay,
Ron, take it away. That was perfect.
Okay. Sue, there is a question. I think it's from Shelley Bogaski. Yeah, from Shelley. The question is, once the data is in the RE database, can we use that system to help area fundraising, or do we need to continue to maintain our own list?
Thanks, Shelley. That's a great question. There's no reason why you shouldn't be able to use this database to help you track that information and utilize it. So the answer would be yes, you can use Raiser's Edge in order to do that. And then I know the next question will be, how will you learn how to use that? So we will work out how we can train you and give you access to those reports.
Awesome. Thanks, Sue. And we also have a question from Bob. Bob, I'm sorry. I don't know. This says your hand has been raised for 20 minutes, so I apologize that I missed you there. I'm going to unmute you, Bob, and you can go ahead and ask your question. Go ahead, Bob.
Okay. Thanks, Jeff. It hasn't been 20 minutes. It's only been about 20 seconds, actually. So.
Okay, good. All right.
No worries. Just to follow up on Shelley's question, first off, is there a way to, so we have a Civi CRM base that we've been using for years. We have over a decade worth of donations and stuff that are there. Is there a way to import, if we're going to have full access to the Raiser Edge software, is there a way to import old data, or is this only from this point moving forward?
So the short answer is yes, there is a way to import data. We're working on an integration right now to get all of our peer-to-peer into Raiser's Edge. So that the short answer is yes, but that process I know will take a longer period of time. So we're not going to ask you to stop using First Giving or not to access that for the information you need. So that's kind of a one-off, I would say. We haven't addressed that issue yet, but consider in the future that yes, we'll be able to import that data and you'll be able to review that as well.
Okay. And then the original question I had, for years now, and Darlene and George never like to hear this, but we haven't been providing addresses for donations that have been given because we know for a fact that things that we submitted to the state, these folks have started to get solicitations. So I'm very interested in how, I heard what you said about how you're going to control it, but I don't want to say I don't believe you, but in the past, it hasn't happened like that. So
yeah, I understand, and I understand that, and I also would like to understand what those solicitations have been, whether it's been direct mail, which is kind of out of our hands, in the aspect that if SOI goes out there and runs acquisitions on individuals in Howard County and starts emailing them or mailing them without us knowing, that's not because we don't have that information. That's something SOI has done. But what I can tell you is we can take those names and suppress them from the SOI file as well. So not only would they be suppressed from any solicitations that we do, but we would send that suppression file to SOI and say we do not want them included on any email or direct mail campaigns. So that would help alleviate that, because I have a feeling when you say in the past they may have received direct mail or they may have received a phone call, and that happens, I hate to, it kind of happens organically because they're out there, doing acquisition and they're getting these names, and it's kind of separate of what we've done. Unless you have a case where we have solicited them for a specific reason. That I don't know about, but if you have examples, that would be great.
Okay. Well, it's been several years ago that this happened because, like I said, we have not been given any addresses for the past many years. I'm not even sure how many now. But we did make those correlations. It seemed like 5, 6 years ago that, hey, as soon as we put these addresses in to the state on the deposit forms, next thing you know, they're getting solicitations from various folks. And it maybe some of it was coincidental, like you said, just happening through these other sources. But we were very suspicious of that.
Yeah. Well, I think the good news is, too, that we can be proactive in suppressing those individuals from SOI activities by doing this. Otherwise, they could still be getting solicited out there, even though you're not giving us that information. So I think that's another positive outcome.
All right. Thanks, Sue.
You're welcome, Bob.
Okay, thanks, Bob. All right, Bob, I'm going to put you back on mute. I don't see any other questions for Sue or any other hands raised for 20 minutes. But Sue will be with us on Saturday at the area meeting in Hagerstown. One question did just come in. Ron, do you want to read that one?
Sure, Jeff. Unsure, Jeff, because I'm opening it up and I don't quite see it yet, even though I see the question mark and the So
the question, Sue, that came in, I believe that the area donors gave to USA Games at our local level have now received mail from Special Olympics asking for donations. Is there a way for donors to not be contacted?
Right, and I'm sorry, you said that people who have given at the Summer Games?
USA Games at the local level.
USA Games? And they've been solicited since then?
Yeah.
Yeah, that, again, I would just need to understand how they're being solicited. I don't know if that's happening through SOI organically or if that's something, if they've received emails from us as a follow-up to USA Games, because I don't think we've done anything to solicit donors from USA Games that I'm aware of for any other purpose. So I don't know who asked the question, but if you can just give me an example of some, an individual this has happened to, that would help me better identify where it's coming from.
Yeah, so Nancy, I know that you'll be with us on Saturday. So Sue will be with us out in Hagerstown on Saturday. So I think this would be good just to get some more details there, just kind of in the interest of time tonight. So thanks, Sue, for joining.
Feel free to email me. Feel free to email me that information. I'd be happy to follow up on that and get to the bottom of that.
Cool. All right. So thank you, Sue, for joining us tonight. We are going to keep moving on.
Okay. Jeff here, I'll go ahead and make myself the presenter. That's probably the easiest.
Okay. Great.
Hi, everyone. This is Mike. Let me get this so we can all see it. Nice and neat. Just a second. And one more swap. There we go. Okay, so thank you much for all the work you've done throughout the season. As Jeff had noted, this is a particularly heavy season with so many sports, and I know that it's not just hectic for us, at the headquarters level. It's very hectic for you guys there, so I appreciate that. So there's a lot of stuff in here, which is mostly for reference. It's that we'll blow through pretty quickly to get to some meatier things. First, we are absolutely thrilled. Over the last 2 months, we've had 3 new folks join our sports team here at headquarters. So some of you who were at cycling at Fall Sports Festival may have gotten a chance to meet Zach Cintron. He came down. He hadn't started yet. Zach and Kara joined us starting this past Monday. But Zach came down to help out and get to see the venue for Fall Sports and was at the cycling venue all day. So he's with us. He is filling the sports director position, and we'll see his sports on the next slide. Kara Moranek also started on Monday, and she's our new director of Interscholastic Unified Sports. That allows Melissa Kelly to step back and work on some more school system-wide initiatives that we want. Kara, again, started Monday and was at our tennis championship for IUS that went on today at Loyola's tennis complex. And Dottie Rush started about 2 months ago. We're thrilled Dottie's doing great and moving quickly up the learning curve on things with processing medicals and volunteer apps, and we'll be doing some other stuff. For those of you who will be with us on Saturday, Dottie will be joining us in Hagerstown. So here's just an updated list of sport leads. This should have been reflected. I think it was reflected in the area leader resource guide that Jeff sent out with the area memo this past Friday. But they're all there. So if it helps, Zach is taking on the same sports that his predecessor, Kristen Mullins, had before she departed. So, but we're really thrilled to have a full team right now for our sports group. Just a reminder, again, in case you're sharing this deck, put all these things in here just as a reminder and for convenience for your coaches. Reminder of all the upcoming state events. We're confirming, you'll notice that everything after summer games has the asterisks of being tentative. We're going through and confirming all those. We're pretty comfortable with most of those locations and dates. They pretty much match up with how they've been in the past. The one that is a change would be the state bowling championships, which are about a week later than you might have thought, looking at the 8th, and that's because December 1st actually happens to be part of Thanksgiving Day weekend, and we figured we probably wouldn't have all that many people show up if we had it that day. For bowling, I realize that our regional bowling tournaments are this coming weekend. This is just a reminder of the various deadlines and such, and these have been gone over in the preseason and all webinars for bowling. The bowling tournaments, again, this coming weekend for the regions are all there, and we've gone through those with folks as well. We're looking forward to a great turnout and such on Sunday. Winter Games deadlines, you see them there as well. Pretty standard, everybody through the, would have to have all their forms in and valid through the 26th. By January 21st, and we've got that there. This is labeled an update. It's really just an edit of the same slide from last year, but just a reminder since we actually didn't get to have Winter Games with this. But the key changes are that we will be implementing this year are the time trials are now part of Winter Games. They begin on Sunday, and it's a 3-day event. And the time trials will be scheduled by area. We'll go over that with your coaches and such. Opening ceremonies will be Sunday night. Competition starting Monday morning around 9:30, and we'll go through. We will be having 2 one-day on-snow training opportunities in January and February, as they're noted there. And we'll have gate training and race training at both of those. Again, they're optional, but highly recommended. And we are expecting, again, to be able to provide with our partners there at Whitetail a reduced rate for folks who want to go up there as a group on their own and do their own on-snow training. The registration fee is the same as what we had announced for last year, full registration of $195 per delegate, and day of for those who are staying elsewhere of $120. So no changes on there. Sorry. There we go. And then basketball deadlines as well. So again, mostly for reference purposes. New sports rules have come out since the last time we gathered. They were published in August of 2018. They're dated June of 2018. I think they held off on posting them because of the USA games and potential confusion because they were not in effect for the USA games. We will be implementing those rules completely, starting with alpine skiing, snowshoeing, and basketball. Of course, we still do have some adjustments that we do on our own that are specific to Maryland, and those will be gone over in the preseason webinars. But your coaches should definitely go and check these out on their own. Article 1, which has the things on divisioning and other stuff that aren't specific to a specific sport, that hasn't changed. The latest version is dated July 2017, and that's still there. Again, we'll review the changes in the preseason webinars. And again, the new versions are there for each sport. They also have posted, I guess within the last month or so, the list of summaries of the changes by sport, which are extremely helpful, particularly for sports like softball, which are something like 80 pages long to go through and find out what's changed. And I did want to point out that there is, just as the last time that we had a new set of rules come in, Maryland had implemented or requested 2 rule changes that were implemented. One this time that we have put in, and this is a real testament to you and your coaches, was the addition of the 1,000-meter race as an official event. We, of course, have been doing it for several years when it wasn't at least an event recognized by Special Olympics International, but it's now an official event, and it's because of the hard work that you and your teams have done. So one of the things I want to go over some decisions on some sports or related to some sports that we discussed back at the meeting in July. I promised to you that we would have the decisions on these by the November 10th area director meeting. And so we have these here. We can take a few questions tonight, but we will have opportunity to talk in more depth on Saturday. So as a reminder, there were 3 sports that we were looking at, or issues with 3 sports. One, bocce, wondering whether there was a need for an allotment or advancement process to address the growth that we were starting to see and expecting to see in bocce at summer games. Secondly, for basketball, we had for the 2018 basketball tournament, state tournament, and to some degree for the 2017, we had to restrict game times and actually eliminate foul shots just to fit the tournament in. And so the question was, should we move, excuse me, the 5v5 traditional and unified state championships to a 2-day format or 2-day tournament where teams would play on both days? And then thirdly, for swimming, there's a very unsafe situation with overcrowding and very chaotic environment in the gym where folks are waiting to the point of it being extremely unsafe, where we have to address that. And the suggestion that was put forward, or the straw person, if you want, but what was put forward is one way to solve that is to do an advancement and allotment system, probably reducing numbers by 20 to 30% in terms of those who came to summer games. And whether we needed to do that, what could we do from an alternative? So the process that we went through, and many of you I know were involved at various stages of this. So we discussed it at the area leadership meeting on Bastille Day back on July 14th. We then held for each sport 2 input sessions where we had an open invitation to basically anybody that we could find involved with the sport. We sent emails directly out to everybody in training for that sport from the most recent year. So it was actually for all three of them, since this was after summer games. We pulled them from the most recent year. Sent an email out to all athletes. The families got it as part of the athletes, unified partners, volunteers, coaches, so on down the line. So I had 2 sessions online where we presented the case to them and got their feedback. The numbers there are the number of participants for each combined: 13 for bocce, 25 for basketball, and 42 for swimming. Little lower than I would have expected, but you know, it was they were good sessions. We also had Adam Hayes hosted athlete input sessions at 2 town hall or 2 input councils that were held in conjunction with town halls in the September and October timeframe. And then we also had some additional individuals who sent some suggestions or recommendations and such by mail. The games management team and the sports management teams for each sport reviewed the issues and the input, and then had several discussions. The swim team in particular, I think, had a total of 4 meetings, reviewing the input and looking for solutions, and drafted the proposals to what they recommend to resolve that core problem of the sport. And then the sports committee, which is a board committee of Special Olympics Maryland. In addition to some board members, it also has Bob Baker and Greg Mead on it, along with Mike Myers and Rennie Springule, who I think many of you know all 4 of those folks. So we discussed it at a meeting we had on October 2nd, and then we met last night to make a final determination based on the final proposals that were put forward by the sports teams. One thing I do want to say here, and I summarize it on another slide, but the folks involved with this were just amazing, from the coaches and the folks giving the input in terms of being very solution oriented and positive in the sense of, hey, we can figure this out. We can come up with a solution. So it was a really nice experience to go through, and I think we've come up with the right solutions for these. So starting with bocce, and these are the decisions that are made, we will not have an allotment process in 2019, though we may need to accept the fact that we're going to have to go towards that in the future. And the primary concern on that is singles. The doubles is not so much of an issue, but the singles just becomes overwhelming. We're examining, this is not a definite, we're going to see if we can do this, eliminating gender from divisioning. That may not seem like it would do anything, but it actually does in terms of working out the schedule and the brackets and how you can most effectively use the courts and the amount of equipment that we have there. Also looking at encouraging 4-person teams, generally in place of singles, so that the folks could do potentially doubles on Sunday, but instead of singles on Saturday, they do 4-person team. That would actually make a huge difference because on a single court and a single game slot, you're engaging 8 athletes instead of 2. So it can it really can help in terms of the capacity there. Looking at starting earlier each day and adding up to 4 or 5 more courts, a simple solution that some folks might think is just add as many courts as you need. That's really not as practical as it might seem. So this is what we're going forward with on bocce, and we think that that'll take care of that challenge. For basketball, the decision was made that we will stick to a single day for competition in 2019 and probably for several years thereafter. We may need to revisit that in the future at some point. We are going to switch the schedule for the weekend, however. We'll be moving the 5v5 traditional and unified teams to Saturday, and the 3v3 teams, the 5v5 and 3v3 PDU teams, and the individual skills will compete on Sunday. This change actually allows us, the stuff that's now on Sunday doesn't take anywhere near the length of time to complete the competition for the day as the 5v5 unified and traditional teams do. So this gives us a little more flexibility. Could go a little bit later if we need to on Saturday, and not impact for most folks challenges with, if we go a little later, challenges with getting to work and or school the next day. We will add at least one additional court and/or facility. We'll see if we can do more. Again, you might see some just keep adding courts, you keep adding facilities. When you add in the need for officials and so on, it's not quite as easy as that. But with this, we also think we can up the game time to 16 or 20 minutes. We'll be looking at consistent bracket structures so that if anybody's gotten into one of the double elimination brackets, that can take an inordinate amount of time to get through, just because of the number of games and such. If we go to a modified, either to a round robin or a modified single elimination, that can help give a little bit of control, because one of the other concerns tied in with this is the number of games, potentially the number of back-to-back games that some teams have to play, and that can take care of it there. And then the team is going to have further conversation. They haven't decided about whether to include foul shots or not. There's some disagreement. They will have that resolved before the preseason webinar, which I believe is November 27th. So they'll have that resolved by then. But this is going forward with that. So we think that that'll take care of that issue. And if not, we'll revisit that. Now, the big challenge that we had, the biggest concern, particularly because of the safety nature of it, was swimming. So the decision was made that we will not be implementing an allotment process, reducing us down to 70 to 80% of the number of athletes that we had this past year. We will be implementing what we're calling a quasi-allotment, capping the numbers at the 2018 Summer Games registration numbers for swimming. Notice there's 2 asterisks there. I'll come back to them. So we will be conducting competition in swimming on Friday. The only hitch on that is we're still working out to make sure that Towson can accommodate us. That's looking very positive, but we'll have final confirmation on that very shortly. We'll have on Friday the fundamental events. That's the assisted swims and the flotation events, the 25-meter free and the 25 back, the 400 free to get to spread out the distance events, and then also the 4x25 freestyle. We're also going to be reconfiguring the schedule to look at, and Neil's already starting to work on that. I'm working on that, and we're going to combine our efforts shortly to see if we can work it out so that for many of the competitors, they would compete on, say, Saturday morning, but not Saturday afternoon, and Sunday morning and not Sunday afternoon, and others would flip so that it reduces the number of folks that would be in that waiting area, the gym. The schedule itself would maintain that. Of course, we would need to then have areas and coaches encourage those folks to go see some other aspect of the games or go to an area, when you see number 8 down there, where they could watch the competition. The spectator space is somewhat limited. So reconfigure the space also just to more effectively use it. If we can find a way safely to move awards out of there, we may be able to make and find another place that works from a logistical standpoint, that works for awards, that we may make that waiting area delegation members only space, i.e. no family members, no other folks in there. That in and of itself may solve the entire problem. We will be having chairs, or we need to get chairs. There was the tarp that's on the floor in there had a small rip on it, and it cost us $1,000 that we had to replace it as part of our contract with Towson. Towson's a wonderful group, and they are truly partners, but they also have things that they need to request, and so that was one of them. So anyhow, we'll provide chairs similar to what we did at Loyola Blakefield when we were there for 2 years. And we will also mark off specific spaces for delegations. That certainly will take some policing and some working with the areas or the coaches for swimming to make sure folks stay within their spaces and don't infringe on other folks' spaces. But that at least will organize things at least somewhat, and we can have actual walking paths, which did not exist in the past. Potentially looking at some additional space within the facility or even outside in a tent or whatever for folks who are waiting, or for family hospitality, maybe a combination there, and we can have that as an encouraging there. And again, potentially they can see the competition there because of 8 that we're starting to work on now. We had tossed this out last year and just didn't have an opportunity to make it happen. But looking at providing live streaming of the competition by Facebook Live or some other similar technology, so that folks can actually see it on their phone. We can set up some large monitors so they can see it in a given space. That might not seem like that would help solve the problem, but what it actually does do, it is encourages folks, it makes it easier for folks to leave the facility when they don't need to be there because they can see what's going on. And then lastly, number 9, looking at developing regional competitions with fanfare, festivity, awards, and such, both to add competitions, but also because we know, looking at the growth trajectory for swimming, we're just kicking the can down the road with this. We will be hitting that situation where we're going to have to do allotments at some point in the future. Maybe 2 years, maybe 3, maybe 4, but we're going to have to. And one of the things that we need to do, that we want to do, I think it's our obligation to do, is to have some type of a meaningful culminating event for athletes, for all athletes, whether they move on to the summer games or the state championship, or they don't. So, and we don't really have that for a lot of our sports now. So looking at creating some regional competitions, starting with 1 or 2 in 2019, we'll work with folks on that. Currently have some money allocated in the budget next year. Budget's not approved, but when it is approved, hopefully that'll still be in there. One more slide, and then we'll see whatever questions we might have. So one of the things I mentioned before, just how incredible it was to speak with folks, and just the positive solution-oriented atmosphere and approach that they took. We really have, and I know you guys know this, but it's always helpful to remind here, we know we've got some incredible coaches there who are just phenomenal, and really looking to find solutions. You'll notice in every single one of these options, or every one of these cases, a solution was figured out that is different from what would be the most extreme, whether it's going to, we didn't have to do allotments, at least not for a year or 2, or we didn't go to the two-day games, and that's because of the coaches. I use as an example, as I recall, I may be misattributing this, the whole idea of flipping the days for basketball was Nancy Castaldo from Harford County just was like, well, have you guys, why don't we just do this? Doesn't that solve a lot of the issues? And it was like, that's a shockingly obvious answer that no one had come up with, and it was Nancy just given that perspective there. It was just great. So anyhow, we know we're definitely going to have to, given where we're growing, which is a good thing, we are going to have to have an allotment or advancement process. As I mentioned back in July, and I mentioned at each of the sessions, Maryland is one of the very few states who, which don't have an allotment, where we are one of the very few. Delaware and DC are maybe the only other 2 that I know of, where virtually everybody gets to go on to the state championship. That is not the norm. And with our growth, it won't be able to be the norm for us for at least some sports. So we know this is coming. So one of the things is having these conversations and making sure people are thinking about it, because there will come a point where there is no other reasonable choice, and we're going to have to go that route. And that's not a bad thing. I mean, we've been lucky that we've been able to do that, but it's much better to have more athletes involved in the program who get to go to the state championship every so often, but who also have a really meaningful culminating event, regional competition, whatever, than it is to say, no, we're going to keep these other athletes out of the program because we want to keep it just for these guys here. And again, other states, almost every other state has this set up and are also experiencing growth. It hasn't worked against any growth initiatives there. And then thirdly, that we need to start implementing some systems now, the example or some things now, because it'll take a while to get them in place. So we're not going to snap our fingers and have 5, 6, or 7 regional competitions or regional swim meets, right away. And I forgot to go back and make a note of that, of one other thing. But if we add 1 or 2 each year, we can get to that point. Let me go back up here. The 2 asterisks down at the bottom of the slide, you can see that cap that I put in under number 2 is sort of a safety measure. There's several things listed there that are not definites that we're still making sure that we can have. And the safety measure there keeps it from getting any worse in terms of the volume and the number of folks that would be there. We will look at, if by February of March of 2019, if it looks like many of these things are coming into fruition and that they really will solve most of the problem, we would look at potentially not doing the cap. We've heard from some of the coaches and some programs who expect to have some significant growth in 2019, which definitely says this is the safety or the space issue is a real issue, but it also says, if we can still accommodate some, that's a good thing. So we'll reevaluate at that point to see if we've got things that are really going to do the trick. And if we can, I doubt that it would be we open it up to everybody, just bring everybody you want, but we maybe would have an option where you could request some additional things. Also should point out, particularly with swimming, that's the most controversial, I know. There are some things we need to work out in order to have, for some of the counties that are particularly more distant from Towson, may not have the additional coaches or chaperones in their delegation and not have family members as well who could actually, if they have athletes who have nothing on Saturday afternoon, that's great. But if they don't have somebody who can take them somewhere to go watch softball or watch, track or bocce or whatever, it doesn't do any good. So we may need to look at some options along those lines. So anyway, I want to pause here for any questions. It looks like we've got a couple in the queue, and then we'll go on to the rest. So Ron or
yeah, Mike,
Jeff?
You have a question from Anna who wants to know how the competition on Friday will affect the cheerleading competition. Will athletes now have to choose?
Yes, athletes will need to choose, and that's not a bad thing either. I know that can be controversial, but yeah, they'll have to make a choice, just as they have to make a choice for what sport they'll do on Saturday. Now, that's not necessarily saying they can't do swimming at all, but if they're in the events that would be held on Friday, they would need to make a choice. And again, I know that's why I say the swimming is it's one of the most controversial ones because it has the biggest change. But making choices is not necessarily a bad thing. Okay, and I know we can disagree on that.
Anna says thank you. And the other question is not a question. It was just a comment from Casey Ryan, who just wanted to commend the staff and members with working together to create solutions. It's much appreciated, and these solutions are great.
Thank you, Casey. And I, just to re-echo the stuff here, every one of those items that are on there, I mean, a staff member might have been thinking about it, but they came from the coaches or the family members. We didn't actually have any athletes join us on the phone or for any of the web sessions. We did have some in the sessions that Adam had, but every single one of them came from someone out there in the field. And it really, I mean, just not to get personal or weepy here, it was really reinvigorating for me because I led each of the sessions, to go through that and just hear how folks were going, because some of the things that were the alternatives are things that people could just become stark raving mad about in terms of the level of change. So thank you, I appreciate that. Again, we'll talk some more about this, particularly around implications and what we maybe need to think about. We've got a couple of them, but I'm sure there'll be more. We'll talk about these some more on Saturday, unless anybody had any other questions right now. I do also want to commend, I mentioned about the sports committee. while the sports teams, the swimming group, the bocce group, and the basketball group, each did an exceptional job in coming up with the proposals. I also want to commend the sports committee, Bob, Greg, Mike, Rennie, and Steve and myself were on there. Terry Waters, who's a new member, was not able to join us, unfortunately, last night, nor could Tim Leonard. But really digging in and exploring the proposals and adjusting some of them. That what you saw here has adjustments that the sports committee made, and really commend them for looking at, you know, what's the best way that we can make it, and they brought up some questions as well that again we'll need to explore on Saturday and after to come up with some of the solutions. So, okay. Oh, it looks like we got a hand up. Trish, Trish, you're self-muted. Now you should be able to speak.
I didn't mean to. Sorry.
Oh, you didn't mean to?
Oh,
Okay. Well, it's good to hear your voice nonetheless. Okay.
thanks, Mike.
Okay. Sorry, Trish and I got to spend some time today a bit at the at the tennis tournament, so it's good to hear you again. Okay, so a few other things just to touch on here. Some things that MK, Melissa Kelly, given the IUS competition today, was not able to join us, but wanted me to share with you. As I mentioned, she's getting now with Kara coming on board, she can step back and look at some larger school-based initiatives, including getting some IUS or IUS-like things into middle schools, developing what's called a Unified Champion School program that incorporates IUS and so on. But an additional one that she's been working on is MATP, Motor Activities Training Program, which was founded in, actually we just heard Trish's voice, was founded in Prince George's County, Maryland, and that's one of the premier locations there is in the country. Right now, we have, as to the best of our knowledge, only 5 areas that are doing something with it, and most of the programs are school-based. Currently, Howard County, Baltimore City, Anne Arundel, and Prince George's County are school-based. Carroll County had an agency or a center-based group who wanted to initiate it with them on their own, and has had some success with that. So one of the things that we do want to have, even though MK is focusing on MATP within school-based programs, is that MATP can go beyond that. Can't go into, if you're not familiar with it, it's we can talk more on Saturday, or you can contact Melissa Kelly and she can give you more stuff, or Trish, I know, can give you a good rundown on that as well. But what I want you to think about is, if you have adult centers, there's sort of built-in opportunities here where, in essence, MATP can be handing them programming that they could implement. They've got the resources, they've got the coaches with their staff, they've got the facilities, so on down the line. And if they never leave their center for anything related to Special Olympics, they don't actually need to have a medical. If they do leave the center for anything related to Special Olympics, they have to get a medical because they're in it's outside of them having it as part of their curriculum. So it cuts down significantly on the paperwork that might be involved. We certainly do want to get their names and be able to track them as well as far as involvement. But it's a great opportunity. So MK can help, but also, blast from the past, Susan Holland, our used to be our family coordinator, is in her retirement from her staff position with Special Olympics, is taking on a volunteer role as a MATP volunteer, and there's her email there, so you can reach out and contact her. Then 2 other slides, and I'm going to hand it over to Mac for a couple minutes. Hopefully you've seen this in the area memo about Coach of the Year nominations. We know that it can take some time and so on to fill out and to nominate folks. We've extended it to November 16th. We can't extend it really any more than that. Please, if you have any coach, go ahead and nominate them. Even if you don't think that they're going to go up or they meet all the criteria that are there, I don't think we've put it out there, but each coach will get a letter from an athlete as well as a certificate congratulating them for being nominated and such. So, and I talked to MK today. If we get 100 coaches nominated just because you want them to get this certificate and this thank you and this acknowledgement, we'll deal with it. That's fine. It's much better to have our coaches thanked in some type of a formal way. So please do give that some consideration, and we would love to have them there. The other thing is there's Kara's picture again. A couple counties have taken advantage of this with the Interscholastic Unified Sports. In the counties that are hosting that in their school systems, there are a series of competitions throughout the season. And there's a county championship as well for each of these. That's a great opportunity for folks to have to connect with prospective athletes, volunteers, partners and such, families and all. I believe, I may be misquoting this, I believe Allegheny and Frederick counties both have gone out and done this with some success. So if you're interested in that or just finding out about it, Kara can give you some more information, or we can connect you up with the folks in Allegheny and Frederick who worked on that. And then lastly, before I hand it off to Mac, if you're interested, we've put these together. Our Lex or Alexa Carney, who is our new Senior Director of Marketing, I believe, I may have her title wrong on that, has designed some banners that we can get for you. They're not for free, and again, we're working on a cost on it. There's no profit to us. It's sort of a pass-through. But these we can customize for you. She can drop in a picture here, drop in your logo, so on. MK estimated that these are like 3 foot by 6 foot, and so on. So if this is something you're potentially interested in, let us know, or go through MK. She's pulling this together as an opportunity, and once we get it nailed down on pricing and so on, it could be a nice little thing to, or not little, it could be a nice thing to promote your program, put it at a training site, put it elsewhere. So that said, Mac, I'll click through for you, but let me go ahead and open up your line. You should be able to speak, and we'll take questions at the tail end of this.
Perfect. I hope everyone is having a great week thus far. Today was a really great day out at IUS tennis at Loyola, so all good things. I just wanted to hop on here and give you guys a quick overview of the fall, the academic year, and our community programs. So we'll start off with some positivity, some testimonials. On the screen, I receive emails like the one that Shannon Stan wrote to me. Probably twice weekly, I receive one of these from our numerous staff professionals from the schools systems that implement YAP, and I think that it is a perfect testimonial to see the simplicity of the program and how it really has an outstanding reaction, not only to the staff but the students. And then you also have a quote right there from Brendan Rath, who is a parent of a young athlete at the Anne Arundel County program. So I just wanted to start off with some positivity, and Mike, if you can go to the next slide, please. So since coming on board in January of 2017, we have been able to expand our numbers at a really great rate. We are, being able, the longer I'm on board, the policies and procedures and kind of having some strategy behind everything has been able to not only reach more athletes, but also track more athletes. So currently we are reaching 1,500 young athletes across the state. That is both in our community programs and our local school system programs. So those are generally children with and without intellectual disabilities. So we typically see our numbers. We have roughly 900 young athletes that do not have an intellectual disability. leaving the other 600 to be our young athletes with intellectual disabilities. So it's usually a 60-40 split, which is really great. Currently, we're in 57 elementary schools across the state of Maryland. So that ranges in our 11 local school systems. Yep, that's great, Mike. So we're in 11 of 24 local school systems. Obviously, it is my goal to definitely get it statewide in all 24 local school systems. But also, we have grown into 6 community programs. One thing I do want to touch upon is the seamless alignment between school programming and community programming. Perfect example of this is the positive momentum that is really happening in Howard and Frederick County. A typical community program runs a cost of $300 for equipment and $400 for a facility fee. However, we have some facilities that are able to be donated through some outside partnerships and really great connections within the community. So those are things that I'm here to help work with. And, you know, we see a lot through the local school system partnering with our community programs. Howard County has 3 amazing coaches, 2 of which are special educators in the Howard County Public School System. So kind of how MATP touches upon is when you get into the local school systems, you really have that built-in community of coaches, facilities, and then it overreaches into that alignment of the community. So I just wanted to give you those quick numbers and really let you know how much we are growing and how much excitement we have. We created new brochures to be shared everywhere and anywhere. I did a nice small order of 10,000. I was really excited. So if anyone would like a mailing to really get the word out, I would be happy to put those in the mail for you at any time. Just reach out to me at my email. And of course, like anything, I am always here. I eat, live, and breathe Young Athletes programs. So at any time of the day, you can shoot me an email, text, or call. Whatever you need, I am here for you. So I hope to be in touch with some of you soon.
Thanks, Mac. Actually, Bob, I'm going to open up your line. If you could, rather than read or have Ron read out what you have there, can you just share your commentary there?
Absolutely. I just wanted to compliment Mackenzie. She is doing a absolutely great job in Howard County, and I'm sure throughout the state, getting us kicked off and started here in the community side and within the school system itself. But I just think she's the perfect person to lead this. She has boundless energy, enthusiasm, and love for these young athletes, and it just shows every time she comes to one of our sessions. And with that type of leadership, I think we're going to be very successful. So thank you, Mac.
Thanks, Bob. You're making me cry.
Okay.
I'm just kidding. I'm not crying, but I really do appreciate it.
Thanks, Bob.
I know you. You probably are crying.
Okay. So in the interest of time, sorry, we'll have to cut that love fest off a little bit. Last slide, and then I'll pass it back to Jeff. Again, we'll talk some more about the 3 sports that the basketball, bocce, swimming, and implications, but also want to talk a bit on Saturday about implementing the codes of conduct policy within your area. We're hearing and getting referred several other more cases than we've had in the past, and we think some things can be handled at your area level, and we think it's worth going through that. Also, we want to talk a bit about unified sports. There seems to be a lingering confusion about the role of the unified partner in that they are a full member of the team. But coupled with that, there's also the concern, which we've seen. We saw it at the USA Games, about abuses of or lack of following the concept of meaningful involvement, wherein when the game gets tight, the partners sometimes take over. So one of the things we have that's as an advantage to help us, and I'm putting him on the spot for the moment because I haven't talked to him about this, but folks of you may know that Jeff was at the USA Games as the unified, I forget what his exact title was, but unified sports. His role was at the softball venue to do exactly this, to keep tabs on and monitor and take appropriate steps when things got out of whack in terms of the partners being too dominant and such. And so I think he has some great perspectives that can help with this, but I want to put together a small task force across sports to look at that and see what we need to do, not just at the for the state championships or any required qualifiers, but across the board with that. So, and then lastly, there is a new coaches education model. We'll share that and talk through it a bit. The sports committee is going to be doing some work on that, but I do want to have a conversation to get some information from you guys on rolling it out and the implications of what I mean by that is, what do we need to have in terms of consequences or rewards, whatever, for folks who either do or do not go through and get their sports specific coaching education, or they're more than just the paperwork of the concussion protected behaviors and volunteer app. So we'll have a conversation about that as well. Jeff, that does it for me, unless there's any major questions that can't wait until Saturday.
Great. Thanks, Mike.
Okay. Yeah, best might be for you to make yourself presenter again.
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and do that. It actually says that I cannot take control right now. Not sure why.
Oh, I've got power. Okay.
Yeah, and I think that was staged by Mike Zarnowski, ladies and gentlemen.
Wow, it let me take it away from you, but not you take it from. Okay, boy.
Well,
you should be able to show your screen now.
For the past 2 months, I don't know what is.
Thanks.
Everybody.
I'm going to mute again before I say something inappropriate.
Yeah, good. And we have that on recording, and I know everybody else is laughing, but you're on mute. So I'm going to go through the next pieces pretty quickly, just in the interest of time tonight. So on the screen now is the proposed schedule for area leader meetings and webinars with some rationale attached to it. So the spring meeting, typically the past few years, it's been in March. I'm hoping that we can put this on April 2nd and 6th. It is the weekend after basketball. My thought process behind that was we can have, with some of the changes that are happening with basketball, albeit them, relatively painless. I think we can have a good discussion around that, and I think that will be just provide another layer of feedback for the anticipated changes. For the summer meeting, going back to the spring meeting really quickly, we are benefiting from a relatively late Easter. So this allows us to push back into April, not hit the Easter holiday at all. And so we should be good there. Looking at the summer meeting, the way that July 4th falls, it's pretty late in the week. I think it's either midweek or Thursday, something like that. So I'm guessing people might take vacation that next week as well. That's second week in July. So hoping to have the summer meeting July 20th with the webinar on July 16th, just gives people that extra week after the 4th of July holiday. And then falling in line with November 16th for the meeting, November 12th for the webinar. This would allow us after bowling, and those of us who will be at bowling on Sunday after the area meeting Saturday might enjoy that week in between. So that's the proposed schedule. If you can mark these dates down, we'll have a small discussion on Saturday just to make sure this works for everybody. But that's what we would like to do there. Okay. Just to provide an update for the strategic plan, as I mentioned, the strategic plan as approved by the board is in the handout section of this webinar. So you might remember, many of you were on the call September 5th. We had an area leaders webinar where we talked about the strategic plan as approved by the board. At that point, the revenue numbers that were included in the strategic plan had not been approved. The board approved everything but that block. On October 15th, the board of directors call approved the full strategic plan, including athlete growth numbers and revenue numbers. I apologize for not including that. And so while it's the same document that we presented to you on September 5th, I wanted to provide the full updated, or the full approved version rather, so that everybody had that. And then the last piece, we talked about our initiatives would be pilot programs. So we're going to talk more about this on Saturday, but we've talked to Nancy and Sue and Pat, as well as our leaders in Cecil and the Upper Shore. And we've identified Harford, Cecil, and Kent counties to work with us to be our first pilot program in a regional structure. So more to come there. We're going to talk about that on Saturday, but just wanted to give people the heads up that that's the first pilot program. We'll be working with Harford, Cecil, and Kent in a regional type model. Again, as you can see at the bottom of the slide, I'll present an overview of what that's going to look like. A quick review of the Health Expo. And again, this has some discussion points that we'll look at. It's on Saturday as well. Was back in October. We had a really good venue. We had great leadership from our clinical directors. Folks from SOI were out. We had 67 volunteers on site between clinics, general volunteers, and Care First. Really, the only downside was we only had 14 athletes attend the entire day. So that's quite a bit. That's pretty alarming, just in low attendance. We thought we hit marketing well. We thought providing transportation or offering transportation was going to be a big seller, but we missed on that. So we want to have a quick discussion on Saturday just about how we can work together to provide more health opportunities for our athletes. That can be something like healthy athletes and a health expo, or it can be things through social media to encourage healthy eating and those types of health opportunities. And really what I'm looking for is, what do you as area leaders want to see in a health program through Special Olympics Maryland? It may not be huge events, and we want to get that feedback. So just more things that we'll be talking about on Saturday. The other document that I mentioned is in the handout section. We're going to take a look at on Saturday. So one of the pieces that I heard loud and clear at the last area leaders meeting that we had in the summer was that we've been talking about this resource guide that we would provide to local programs, and I think we haven't followed through on providing that kind of a startup guide, everything you need to know about having a local program. Special Olympics North America actually put one together, and we'll take a look at that on Saturday. It's attached to this webinar, but it's a document skeleton provided by SONA to support the growth and development of local programs around the country. But the nice thing is they provided both a PDF and a Word doc format, so we can customize to meet all of our needs in Maryland. The sections that they have include, like I have listed, management team development and meetings, branding, sponsorship, competition standards, sport development, recruitment and training, fundraising, development, risk management, and a glossary, which is huge because it takes the alphabet soup of Special Olympics and tells us what all of those letters mean. The challenge is it's general. It's very generic, and while some of it's very good, it doesn't talk about Maryland specifically. So I'm committing our staff to take a look at this document and really provide a good resource for our area leaders. It's currently a 78-page document, a 78-page general document. So we want to make that as specific to Special Olympics Maryland as possible. So if you have a chance to take a look at it before you attend the meeting, what we want to get an idea is what are the sections and topics that should be the highest priority for our team to tackle first. We don't want to choose those for you. We might think we want to look at competition standards, but if you are really into volunteer recruitment and saying we need help doing that first, we're going to take a look at that. We'll pick a few that we want to tackle. And then what are the specific resources that you would like to see available? So are they checklists? Are they, sample flyers? Anything like that? We'll go through and we will do the legwork in editing all of this together. But I would appreciate your help in identifying what is of highest priority that we're going to take a look at. So I don't think anybody would have questions about that, but did want to pause just in case people do. Great, I will keep rolling along. So area leader meeting will be on Saturday, 11/10/2018, in the Cumberland Central and South rooms at the Ramada Plaza in Hagerstown, where we hold our winter games housing. I appreciate everybody's flexibility with the Hagerstown meeting. In addition to showing some love for our leadership out in Western Maryland, this was a great way to use some money that we had to spend after the winter games cancellation. So I appreciate it. It is a bit of a longer drive, but it's a cost-effective way to have a good meeting for us. We are going to start a bit later. I know people are used to area leader meetings starting at right at 9 o'clock, but to be respectful of the longer distance, we're going to start at 9:45. So it's not a huge time difference, but hopefully that 45 minutes gives you a bit of extra time to get out there. You can see we have a tight schedule, good presentations. We'll have Sue back with us to talk through the development updates again and have more discussion. Same with Mike, he queued up some topics, and then some work sessions around the strategic plan and local program structure and resources. So you can see the topics that we'll be covering. There's still time to register. I over-ordered on food just in case people wanted to add at the last minute. So if you haven't registered, definitely encourage you to do that. We certainly understand if you are unable to make it. It's a busy time of year, a bit of a hike, but if you can, it would be great to see you. So I sped through that. Want to open it up if there's any remaining questions from anyone. Now's a good time to type those in or raise your hand. Ron will be perusing that screen. But if you do have any questions, any follow-up questions, you can certainly email Ryan if you're from a Western Maryland County, Ron for the Baltimore region, or for anybody at any time. Feel free to email me. Be happy to connect you with resources. So thanks everybody for your time tonight. I appreciate it. Hope it was informative. I'm looking forward to a great meeting on Saturday, really conversational. Looking forward to hearing your ideas and your thoughts and how we continue to advance it. But please know how much I appreciate the effort that you're putting into getting our athletes on the field and on the court and in the pool, providing them a high quality program. We certainly appreciate that. So seeing no hands raised and no additional questions coming in, we will go ahead and close down this webinar. I'm going to send out the recording, the slide deck, so that everybody can have them. Take a look. Please feel free to spread it through your, pass it around through your management teams. But other than that, have a great night. Looking forward to seeing everybody on Saturday. Thanks so much for joining us tonight.
Thanks, Jeff.